Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cheryl if you're new here, and today I'm here to bring you a spoiler-free review for Blood of the Fold by Terry Goodkind. I finally read this book, and I'm so disappointed, you guys. I'm so sad. So this is the third book in the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. It is a high fantasy, just adventure series. Every book has a new monster that, is way worse than the last one, but somehow the characters pull a Deus Ex Machina and save the day in the last 5 minutes, but I digress. So I was super excited to continue this series, to pick up this book and continue my reread. I have read the first, I want to say 4 books in the series before I finally kind of put it down due to life, other books, etc. back in high school. So yeah, I was picking up this series to read it again for the first, reread the first 4 books and continue on. I have quite a nostalgic attachment to the first book, which is just Wizard's First Rule. It was fantastic. Well, I reread it, realized a lot of problems that it has, but it still has a nostalgic place in my heart. This book, unfortunately, does not have that nostalgic place and was very irritating, which makes me really sad. So yeah, like I said, this will be spoiler-free in terms of major plot points, or even minor plot points, so you don't have to worry on that front, but I might spoil some random character things, traits, etc. So you have been warned. So obviously I cannot tell you the plot specifically of this book because I would have to spoil 2 1,000-page books before it, and that's a lot. But overall, this series is a fantasy series, like I said, a high fantasy series that follows the story of Richard. He was a woods guide and very happy with what he did and where he lived. He was best friends with a local kind of kooky man. He was a cloud reader, and they just kind of went about their business. And then one day, Richard, of course, is told that he's basically the chosen one. He needs to go defeat this evil being, and he quests off on an adventure to go do that. It is, like I said, very, very unoriginal in terms of the story. In fact, I have also heard from people who have read the Wheel of Time series that Terry Goodkind essentially just plagiarizes some story elements. I have not read that series, so I cannot compare and say one way or the other. I'm just telling you what I've heard. It does have a fairly large cast of characters, if that is what you are into. It also is fairly easy to read. This was a little over a 600-page book, and I pretty much flew through it despite the issues I have with it. It did not feel like I was slogging through a 600-page book, and the one before it was a little over 1,000 pages, and I felt the same way. But this book, I also enjoyed the magic system, but the story itself, it wasn't very original. I just particularly enjoy magic systems and fantasy books, so it just automatically got points for me for that. I did give this a 2.5 stars out of 5. I thought about giving it a lower rating for the things I'm going to talk about, but the fact that I was able to fairly easily read it still, and the fact that while unoriginal, I do enjoy fantasy and fantasy series of any sort, that is the reason I decided to give it more than a 1-star rating. So let's just start with the fact that it's very, very clear that Terry Goodkind is living extremely vicariously through his characters, to the point where it's quite uncomfortable at times. I don't even know how to describe it if you haven't read the book. Basically, Richard is the most perfect Gary Stu. He can literally do no wrong, and the moment he does do wrong, or the moment he does sin, everyone immediately forgives him because he's such a great man. He is literally just perfect in every aspect. He follows truth. He follows justice. There's a major plot point, and it mimics essentially something that one of the evil rulers did in a previous book, but everyone praises him for it, and oh, that's great, I'm glad you're doing this. And no one can really see the hypocrisy in his actions. That doesn't make sense. And then just Kalan, his love interest, is just so perfect in every single way, and she's only defined by her actions in regards to Richard. She's supposed to be a strong female character, but literally her actions are 100% defined by the men around her. Their relationship is really boring, but that is probably because Terry Goodkind will not allow any conflict, internal conflict in the relationship. They don't argue, they don't fight, they immediately understand each other's actions, to the point where the only conflict is keeping them apart. They were separated mostly for this whole book, which is how it's a running trend in his series, it seems to be. But yes, so they're perfect, just absolute perfect characters, which is why this author is living through them, and it is just unbelievable. You can't get behind these characters because you're like, well, you're not going to fail in any way. So there's also a pretty like black and white view of evil. You are either like super good or super evil. There are no morally gray characters, really. It is just a little obnoxious, the amount of preaching on that aspect, to the point where like characters in this are just like, if they're good, they're just, like I said, they can do no wrong. They're perfect in every single way. And if they're bad, they're like extra bad. It's not bad enough that they have like selfish motivations, but they're all just gonna rape every single person. Every single evil guy rapes. Terry Goodkind won't allow them to be evil for their ambitions or for their personality. Like, they also have to rape and pillage, but every single evil person does. It just, or there's incest or pedophilia. Like, he literally just tacks on every single negative trait he can think of onto the evil people. And it's just, it's overdone. There's like I said, there's not even a morally kind of gray area. You're just like extra evil or you're extra good. That is it. Like I said, story wrapped up in a perfect Deus Ex Machina in the last like 20 pages, and given how long this book is, it's so frustrating. The way everything perfectly wraps up, and it just is unbelievable. It happened in the last book too, and I can almost guarantee it's going to happen in the next book, because that is just his writing style, and it's not good. I don't like when authors end their books like that. Alright, so let's just get into the biggest reason that I did not give this book any higher of a rating than I did, and that I wanted to lower the rating, but like I said, the writing was decent enough or average enough that it kept the rating higher, and that is the sheer unbelievable amount of misogyny in this book. And I don't know if it was in the previous books, and I just, in this past like few months, have really started becoming more critical of a reader, or if he just let it go, and just like this book was the book where he just was gonna let his feelings towards women show. But there is so much misogyny in this book that it was almost nauseating to read at times. So all of the strong female characters are defined exclusively by the men around them. I already talked about that with Kalan. She's supposed to be the strong mother character, so perfect in every way, but she's still only defined by Richard's actions around her, as well as the other men she encounters. The same can be said for pretty much every single female character in this book, and it is just absolutely ridiculous. There's so many examples I can list, but I'll spoil, so I try not to do that. But it's sickening to see the fact that, like, you can tell someone hurt Terry Goodkind in his past, and basically he has made these characters represent every just like woman that has wronged him in his life, I guess, and just tortures and does awful things exclusively to those characters. It's weird, it's gross, it doesn't make sense like in terms of writing, but I just don't know why. So the biggest possible spoiler, I'm gonna leave it kind of ambiguous, and it's not really a major plot point, is one of the characters that Richard knows comes out as a lesbian and says that she's currently in a relationship with another female. Of course, when she's like, I like her, Richard's like, well, I like her too. She's like, no, I like her the way you like Kalan. He's like, oh, I like her like family too. And this woman is like, oh my god, like, what more can I say? She's like, no, I love her, I am in a relationship. And Richard's like, well, that's unnatural. So not only do you have like the sexism, but there's also a lot of homophobia in this book, because he's like, that's unnatural. I don't like that at all. But then, because Richard is perfect in every single way, he's like, I may not like it, but I still respect you and love you. So this was used as a plot device as well, which, coming out of the closet or outing a character should never be used as a plot device, because that's just shitty writing. Anyway, I digress. So it was used as a plot device, but also to show that Richard, even though he comes into things in life that he disagrees with, he is such a perfect character and such a perfect man that he can get past that and still like love and respect this character, which is, something a person should do anyway. But it is highlighted and extra in this book because Richard is just so good and so perfect. Really? Besides just the homophobia in this scene alone, are you really going to use it to further the male character's, like, agenda? I don't even know if that's the right word. because it's just his perfectness. You've got the pubescent boy fantasy of like the dominatrix style women who are basically slaves to the men around them, and it's sickening. I don't know another word for it. Also, something that I did not understand whatsoever is the fact that this book tries to excuse slavery and say that it's okay because it's benefiting the person enslaved. No, that is never okay. Also, the fact that this book uses sexual violence as like a torture thing. So rape, sexual violence, that kind of stuff is considered a crime unless it is a good character doing it, and then that is okay. Then it's a teaching tool. Then it's excusable because they're a good person. Just the hypocrisy in this book is astounding at times. So long story short, did not really enjoy this book. Didn't know how I was going to feel going into it. I knew I was going to have issues because, like, he gets preachy with his politics later in the series. He's quite a fan of Rand and her philosophies. So I know that later in the series that really becomes apparent. However, I didn't know this book was just going to be bogged down with, like, the sheer amount of, like, misogyny and women hate that it has. And as a result, I don't know if I'm going to be continuing the series because I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. I am at least to some degree interested in what happens to some of the characters, like side characters, later in the series, but I don't know if that's enough of an interest to push me through another 1,000, like, I think the next book is another, like, 800 pages, and the one after that I think is another 1,000 pages. So basically, I have to push myself through, like, 2,000 more pages before the books start finally becoming, like, 400 or 500 pages. And then I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. I already own most of the books, so it's not like I would be going out and buying them and then further supporting the author. I already own them. But anyway, that is my spoiler-free review for Blood of the Fold by Terry Goodkind. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my social media, which is always linked down below. You can see what I'm up to in my daily life. I tweet a lot of pictures of my cats. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!